Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
But something I realized, Ashley, and this is really we're getting into the juice of it, the meat and potatoes, as people say, is I started to realize that not only is it not where it should be, but I think we're a long ways from where we should be. And I'm going to explain to you why. Interracial dating is definitely a thing. And I mean this with all due respect to you, because your experience just happens to fall into this category. But not all the time, but majority of the time, my experience that I've seen at this kind, it could be different all over the country, all over the world, rather. But definitely all over nationally. When I see an interracial couple, 9 times out of 10, it's athletes. It just happened to work like that. Cheerleader athlete or and the ones that don't fall into that category probably have some type of spiritual or religious connection in church or some type of religious group, branched out from the university. And you have your miscellaneous, so you have those that don't fall into any of those categories. Now, something I noticed, because when I first moved here, once again, I want to say this again, I saw these interracial couples. I loved it. I know a lot of people back home who wouldn't love it. I know a lot of people at home who would say that, of course, Demetrius will love it, because I remember, and I've mentioned this, and I know you all are gonna, any of you who's been listening to the podcast so far, and I appreciate all the support, by the way. You pretty much know what I'm about to bring up, because I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times already in just the 2 or 3 episodes I've released. But right before I graduated high school, I remember sitting in the living room. I remember the street. I remember the house I was living in. And I remember my aunt telling me, this is the second time I had ever heard this. My aunt was like, my nickname's Didi. And she was like, oh, they was like, bragging on me because I was really big on art. Mm-hmm. But I was, in the fight, if you will, to graduate number 1 male in my class. Sure. So I was like I was competing on these different levels, and I was playing sports and doing all these different things. And she was like, well, I'm telling y'all what Didi gonna do right now. He not finna leave off and go play sports. Didi's gonna, I'm telling you, he's gonna leave. Y'all playing with him. He's gonna leave off, go to college, get a good job, marry him a white woman, and start a family. And she saw nothing wrong with it. Wait, Ashley.
I know.
Nothing was wrong with it. She said this as a compliment.
But why is that a compliment?
This was a compliment to Demetrius. This was supposed to say Demetrius is going to go off and be successful. Yeah, and being successful is part of that image, right? And part of that imagery is marrying a white woman.
That's wrong. It shouldn't be that way. If that is the reality, it shouldn't be the reality. A white wife is not a trophy.
She said this, and I looked at her, and I didn't quite understand why that's the perception of me. And I'm like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
I talk a certain way, and I don't fall into the category of talking, quote unquote, hood. Sure. Right? I talk like I have some sense. I do use slang. I know how to flip in and out of that talk. But there's no such thing as talking white. And I know this is a big thing in my community where we say he talks white. And I've heard this since I've attended and graduated college. And I go back home and little kids and say, he talks funny. Mm-hmm. He talks white, like a white person. There's no such thing as talking like a white person. Because what we're doing right there is, once again, we're putting whiteness with, we're equivalating whiteness with success. That doesn't make sense. We're equivalating whiteness with education. Again, that does not make sense. I get the idea. I understand why we as people, my people in particular, why we think and feel this way. There are many, many different people who classify as white that aren't even educated. There are many, many so-called white people who are not only not educated, but they talk like a so-called black person. Mm-hmm. There is no such thing as talking like a so-called black person. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. That it just so happened that a larger, percentage of this group of people talk a certain way. But that does not mean that goes with their so-called race or their nationality. So because I think this is, and the reason why I bring this up is because I think because I talk the way I talk educated, and I talk like I have some sense. They're like, oh, if Didi talk more quote unquote hood, which is more acceptable, and he was going to college, all right, maybe I say he's going to go off and marry him a woman. But because Didi talks the way he talks and he carries himself the way he carries himself, he's gonna go off and marry a white woman.
How does that make you feel?
I've never dated a white girl in my life. I've quote unquote talked to, and I don't know. There's different classifications, and people understand it to be different things. That just means like some people call it dating.
Sure.
But dating for me, it means you're legit my girlfriend.
Okay.
So if you classify dating as the phase you do before you get married or something like that, all right, then you can call it dating. I have dated a white girl, but when she said this, I just stared at her because actually I was like, oh, I mean, I'm 16 at the time. Oh, okay. This is the second time I've heard this in my life. And it just so happened that many, many years before the first time I had heard it came from the same person. Why did you just say that? And she goes, oh, because you have so much going for yourself, you're going to graduate, you're going to get a good job. Oh, she don't even realize I'm not even talking about the college part. She don't even know I'm talking about the marrying a white woman part.
Right.
Why do you just assume that's going to happen for me? Oh, I don't know, Didi. I don't know, baby. Don't think too much into it. I am going to think too much into it.
Because she planted that seed. And that's just the same on the flip side when you're a white woman. So I talked about my experience coming from his family, but I've had that same experience coming from my white friends or my white side of the family. You're not going to go into the black world. You're not going to that college party to go into the black world.
Let's be honest here. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. That was a thing. That has happened to me so many times. And I always remember thinking, what the hell are you talking about? What's a black world? You mean the United States of America that is mixed of a whole bunch of different people? What's the white world? I don't live in that world. I just live in the world.